So Wizard Predicts, thank you so much for being here. Legal question, it's all you. The state of legal profession post Donald J. Trump. Awful seeing attorneys threaten other attorneys for representing Donald J. Trump. Ron.
Attorneys in corporate law firms have lost the ability to represent conservatives for the foreseeable future. I lost, one way or another, 2 jobs in corporate law firms because of my involvement with right of center causes. I'm now partners with Harmeet Dhillon because we are basically an alternative law firm. Even though we do have corporate clients and do commercial work, but most of the public companies are not going to want to have anything to do with us. They're part of the elite system, and the corporate law firms that cut and run on Trump, and Harmeet was vociferously public and explicit about this. The idea that a Jones Day sucks millions of dollars a year over multiple years representing the Trump campaign, and then when they start getting threatened, they distance themselves from their own client publicly, is outrageous. So there's no future. I mean, those firms are going to make millions of dollars per partner without the help of conservative. That's fine. But the answer is lawyers such as myself are going to have to find refuge in alternative practices. And we have not yet reached the point, but we probably will soon, where both bar, disciplinary authorities, and the judiciary will start joining in. And this was the beginning of what was happening in the Flynn outrage, where not only did the DC Circuit Court of Appeals agree that a judge could hire a new prosecutor to satisfy the judge that someone wasn't getting off appropriately, but that bar associations and the criminal defense bar would either join in on the side of the elites in that case, or be silent. So we're moving in that direction. But as of right now, I do think it is true that lawyers can practice law, but we can't practice in corporate settings. And it's just as well, because corporate settings are disgusting. They're you know, I had a relative who worked for one of the biggest companies in the world, which was known as a relatively unwoke environment, all things being equal, and the changes that have taken place there in the last year have made it intolerable.
You and I both, I had a relationship with Rush Limbaugh that went back 20 years because we were one of his biggest advertisers. And, you know, I can't say I had a good relationship with him, but I certainly can't say I had a bad. And I'm a liberal, and I disliked him ideologically for his support of the 2000 war, 2000, the invasion of Iraq, his kind of endorsement of it. And he was the 2 more weeks of his generation, because him and David Brooks, the New York Times particularly, were always saying, just give us 6 more months and we can win this war. And but
the problem was the nation building.
Yeah, but at the same time, we were, and I discussed this a little bit during a Periscope yesterday, we were my company was constantly being bombarded by our clients and by law firms and a whole bunch of other people telling us that we're not allowed to do, that they will leave us if we continue to advertise on Rush Limbaugh. And we disregarded all of them. At the same time, this was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, this goes way back with Rush Limbaugh. And had it been today, I don't think we would have been able to resist kind of the digital, what Rising Serpent calls digital Antifa, which I think about a lot. Just this digital Antifa, I don't think we would have been able to resist it and its amplification and all the kind of the tactics that it employs. I think we would have had to concede to the mob and stop advertising on Rush Limbaugh, honestly.
Well, I think to some extent there are that social media has also allowed pushback on that. You know, I don't think Goya suffered from the attempt to damage it. I think, in fact, that their sales went through the roof, and that they ended up smelling like a rose. It's a matter, however, of nerve. And by and large, the people who make it to the top in the corporate world lack it. They are extremely risk averse, as are most successful lawyers. So the risk-averse personalities that run large institutions, especially as they control more and more power and wealth, they have more and more to lose by risking it. So there's not an entrepreneurial spirit. There is a highly conservative spirit, but not conservative in the traditional political sense, but rather conservative in terms of a fear of repercussions. I mean, the last firm that I was turned out of, they said, you're representing, Gavin McInnes. And people are going to think that our firm represents Nazis. And they said, well, do you tell them about who the partner is who's representing Rush Limbaugh, that he's an Orthodox Jew? Well, we don't want to, and that the reason we're defending him is because he's being wrongly accused of being, a white supremacist. Well, no, that's too complicated. We just don't want to deal with having to have the question asked. And that's raising risk aversion to entirely new levels. That's not even risk aversion, that's conflict aversion. And that's how you get a flattening of mores, and reaction, and nothing outrages anyone in a meaningful. There's outraged theater, but every single thing that people had claimed to be outraged about by Donald Trump, including children in cages, immigrant children in cages, non-issues now. So it's all.
Do you feel outside of Dhillon Law that you would have had that? Do you feel that the job opportunities were shrinking for you, and do you feel that the margins of the business that you now have your billable hours are just much lower?
I have already been an outsider in that respect for a while. I'm not someone who has really had a job in a very long time. I'm a partner with my own practice, and I go wherever it makes sense for me to practice it. If I had to do it Harmeet convinced me that it would make more sense to do what I'm doing with her than to do it by myself. And given the way I keep a set of books, she's 100% right about that. And other reasons, including the fact that it's great to work with Harmeet Dhillon. But the opportunity, first of all, when you've worked in 15 or 16 or 17 law firms, at a certain point, you should get the message that you're not cut out for certain kinds of law firms.
Let me go backwards a little bit. After our last Periscope, you then joined a team that was working with Kyle Rittenhouse. Is that correct?
Yes. And then we left that team because at least one of the people involved was increasingly showing that he was unstable and unprofessional, and that we didn't want to continue working with him. It had nothing to do with the merits of the case, that's for sure.
And does that also mean, because it's such an interesting question that Wizard asked, because there's kind of downstream effects. Does that also mean that the lawyers that you're going to see that are able somehow to endure, the conservative lawyers, are going to be there's going to be an increasingly flake element to them that you don't have? Are you going to see kind of the flake element on the right?
You bet. Absolutely. You know how many anonymous conservative lawyers on Twitter or who are not on social media at all contact me and tell me how much they wish they could do what I'm doing, but they couldn't? In other words, there are cadres and cadres of conservative lawyers, but they're terrified of being identified as such. Now, look, having said that, there was a trope going around last week that Donald Trump was so, because of the attorneys being threatened for representing Donald Trump, that he had to use lawyers that would not have been his first choice. That's baloney. I know scores of excellent conservative lawyers who would have picked up the phone, taken on the representation, and then would have done it. Does that mean we're out of time?
No, that means what it means. I'm going to put it on mute while you continue to respond.
Okay. So there are plenty of conservative lawyers and people who are willing to be seen as conservative lawyers. But I will tell you that when I was pulled out of the Pennsylvania election central for the GOP on election night, and asked to work on a project with Giuliani. I was introduced to Giuliani by another lawyer who had previously worked for the campaign and who told me he was looking for someone to do what he would have been doing, but his partners told him, we're not going to be involved in challenges to the election. So notwithstanding that dead bloody body and that knife, these lawyers were so cowed, and this was a major national firm, that this guy, and again, the more wealthy you get, if someone who is a partner in a major law firm making multiple, or at least even a single 7-figure annual draw, threatening him, especially if he doesn't control his own business, which is the case in most partners in most major law firms, telling him, we will not let you stay here and continue to make it uncomfortable for us by your representing the President of the United States. That's going to leave Ron Coleman and Harmeet Dhillon as your least flaky conservative lawyers. Now, I think I got a decent reputation among most judges. I'm not considered a flake professionally, but that's where we're going.
But is there now a Lynn Wood effect, right? And I think it was Technofog, or I forget, maybe it was Jack Murphy that was talking about Lynn Wood just a day or two ago. But is there now a Lynn Wood effect that anything kind of that there's a bar, and then anything below that bar is Lynn Woodian?
Well, that's an insult to me. I mean, not with all, I'm sorry for Lynn. I mean, I worked with him on the Rittenhouse case, and he was a gentleman by and large. But right now, let's put it this way: it's not true. It's not true. Harmeet Dhillon is not Lynn Wood.
No, I didn't mean. I apologize. I hope I didn't really offend you, but I didn't mean that. I just meant that because now, if the future prospects of a lawyer are, you have to be a liberal and you have to kind of not only be tolerant but be an adherent of the left, then those people that are willing to go to the right are going to be foregoing a lot of career opportunities, a lot of wealth opportunities, a lot of prestige, a lot of vanity, and you're going to get some lower tier people that are going to really reflect very poorly on it as an industry and academically.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, listen, there's also there's a whole sociological phenomenon. I remember people saying to me, I remember reading the comments when I filed the Gavin McInnes lawsuit. Oh man, this case is so meritless that I can't wait for the Rule 11 sanctions that are going to be awarded. Well, the judge in that case prevented it from being adjudicated so far for now 2 years by not ruling on it. But no Rule 11 motion was made, no Rule 11 letter was sent. But what happens is that the schoolyard bullying, and in other words, it's a kind of professional virtue signaling. I'm going to get out so far in front of where everyone's going to want to be on this case. Is I'm going to accuse Ron Coleman of filing papers that would subject him to Rule 11 sanctions. That's defamatory. But the camp followers for Pope Hat think nothing of it, nothing. And that's where we are now. It's good or bad, and it's not a matter of it's the left or the right. Even if you're in the center, you have to at least be prepared to not take on the work or to be silent in order to in order to withstand the kind of pressure you described when you were advertising on Rush Limbaugh's show.